Episode 7 Haggis teases us by nearly revealing the answers to some very important questions. However, we do learn a lot in this episode, so let's dig in. We meet a new character, Natalie, although she's not exactly new, as we learned in Episode 1 that she was the person who introduced and integrated the reborn doll with the Turners. The episode opens by showing us the exact moment that Dorothy was given the doll. In present day, Natalie discovers the Turners have hired a nanny, and because she's still under the assumption that it's a doll, is disturbed by the revelation. When Dorothy rushes out of the house to catch her ride, Natalie seizes the opportunity to investigate the doll. She goes into the nursery and sees it in the crib. She reaches toward it, but out of nowhere, Ninja Leanne pulls her to the floor by her hair, then rushes out of the room with Jericho before Natalie can see the child. Soon after, Natalie has a conversation with Sean about the whole situation. We learn that she was adamant about the doll being only a temporary fix, and says this whole thing has gone way too far. She wants to wake Dorothy up. Sean rejects this idea, and we know it's because he's trying to hide what's really going on. If Natalie learns the truth about what happened to the doll, then Sean faces some tough questions. But much to Sean's dismay, Dorothy soon invites Natalie over for a dinner party. So Sean enlists Leanne as a hostess for the party, and the two come to an agreement that they must not let Natalie see or hear the baby while she's there. The night of the dinner, Julian arrives first. He's on the phone with Roscoe, discussing Uncle George, and trying to uncover more details about him. Julian then meets with Sean in the cellar, and we discover that the two believe Uncle George will try to blackmail the Turners. The men have started to secretly stockpile money in the event that they're forced to pay him off. Julian brings $20,000 and Sean $8,000. How great are Rupert Grint and Tony Kebbell when they're on screen together? In my opinion, these two have the best chemistry of any characters on this show. Julian is upset that Natalie will be attending the dinner and that Sean has recruited Leanne to help. The dinner kicks off with a surprise prayer from Dorothy. Natalie asks her when God has entered the house, which I found to be an interesting way to ask. Natalie wastes no time gearing the conversation toward the fact that Dorothy needs help. The men try their best to stop this, but Natalie persists. Although Dorothy misunderstands and assumes it's all about the fact that she's letting go of Natalie's services. She delivers a sweeping speech about how strong she feels lately, calling herself She-Ra. Dorothy goes to the nursery to retrieve Jericho and bring him to meet Natalie. However, Sean stops her, commenting that she's been drinking, that it wouldn't be safe for her to walk down the stairs in heels while holding the baby. What if something happened to him? There was some speculation online that this could have been the way that Jericho died. It's not a bad idea, and who knows, maybe they're right. I personally believe something more sinister happened. Outside, Natalie approaches Leanne and questions her. She asks if the men told her what really happened to Jericho. This scene delivers a major revelation. We learn that Natalie not only knows what happened to Jericho, but that she aided in the aftermath of whatever occurred. She says the men called her pissing themselves in fear. It's this comment that reinforced my belief that Jericho's death was more than just an accident. We'll touch on this again soon. Natalie eventually makes her way back to the nursery and sees that the child in the crib is in fact not a doll. However, she hears the growl of a feral dog that's managed to get into the house. She runs from the room, the dog chasing her. She runs downstairs and calls to Julian. Julian grabs a wine bottle and strikes the dog, although we don't see this happen. The dog appears to have been killed by the strike and is then dragged into the bathroom. Leanne looks on, mortified by the event. I was a little surprised by this. She's so protective of Jericho. You'd think that the death of a feral dog that could have killed Jericho wouldn't have had such an impact on her. Then, of course, there's the big moment in the episode. We see Leanne again praying at her bedside, and later she slips into the bathroom where the dead dog is. The dog is eventually brought back to life and runs out the front door, much to the surprise of everyone. Yet another clue that Leanne appears to somehow resurrect those that are dead. This made me wonder about the significance of dogs throughout the episode. With this show, I always turn to biblical themes first. In the Bible, dogs exhibited predatory behavior for their survival. This included eating dead bodies. In the Bible, there's also some evidence that physical violence towards dogs was considered acceptable. During that time, comparing a human to a dog or calling them a dog implied that they were of very low status. In the New Testament, calling a human a dog meant that the person was considered evil. This only made me even more confused about Leanne and the dog in this episode. Another quick note on biblical themes. In our mid-season deep dive video, we talked about the Turners eating foods deemed unclean by the Old Testament. We get yet another example with Sean preparing squid. Natalie and Julian share a very important conversation. She asks whose baby was in the crib. Julian tells her that Leanne brought the baby as a result of an incest rape situation. Yikes. Does he really believe this? As of now, I think this theory makes the most sense to Julian and Sean. But more importantly, we uncover something about the Jericho incident. Julian states that the incident has left him scarred, even mentioning, "Why didn't I get a doll?" Natalie asks if he's talked to a professional about what he saw. All this time, I've been under the assumption that the men could somehow be responsible for Jericho's death, namely Julian. However, this conversation with Natalie has begun to change my mind. The comment that the men were pissing themselves in fear makes me believe that Dorothy could actually be the one responsible. Let's discuss the cracking floor. I mentioned in a previous review that the basement has an air of dread, making me believe that something terrible took place there. In this episode, Leanne sees the floor crack, seemingly out of nowhere. There was some chatter online that this could be the place where Jericho was buried. Could the Turners have busted up the floor and buried him there? Did they do a less than professional job replacing the floor, which led to it cracking? These are interesting ideas, and lend more toward the idea that Jericho's death was more than just an accident. The episode ends with Leanne watching a televangelist who says, "But if the Lord creates something new, and the ground opens its mouth and swallows them up, with all that belong to them, and they go down alive into hell, then you shall know that these men have betrayed the Lord." I didn't have much luck deciphering the meaning behind this. If you have any input, please share your thoughts and help clear this up for me. So, did I enjoy episode 7? Hell yeah. In my opinion, this show is perfectly paced, giving us just enough each week to help unravel the mystery. This is why I despise the binge model. A weekly show builds excitement and gives the community of fans a chance to discuss it. The binge model gets people excited for, a few weeks? Only for the show to soon be left behind until the next season is released and binged again. Okay, rant over. I'll give this episode an A-. It's hard to cover everything in these videos, so leave us a comment and let us know what we missed. What did you think the cracked floor meant? Did something terrible occur in the basement? Let us know below. If you've enjoyed this video, we'd love you to subscribe to see more content like this. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.